Reheating Cold War tensions, Russian President Vladimir Putin calling out the United States during his State of the Union address, which just wrapped up minutes ago. In his speech, he claims the country has developed a new generation of interceptor missiles, along with technology that renders missile defense systems useless. He also called the new U.S. nuclear doctrine worrying, while announcing new nuclear technology like an underwater drone that can carry a warhead. Joining me right now is Fox News senior strategic analyst, General Jack Keane. General Keane, good to see you this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning,
the speech
Maria.
just ended. Putin's still there on stage. What are your thoughts on what he had to say?
Well, it's true. I mean, Putin, as well as the Chinese, have upgraded their nuclear missile arsenal, and that's something that we are finally getting to do ourselves. It's in the new budget that the president and the Congress just approved. And he does have new capability. He's gone back to tactical nuclear weapons, something we had in the past, and we both, Russia and the United States, agreed to get rid of, during the 1980s intermediate nuclear force discussions. What he's introduced is a cruise missile, surface missile. That's a very good missile, to be sure, and it'll carry a nuclear-tipped weapon. And he's also got an undersea drone doing the same thing. We are proposing, the president hasn't approved it yet, but we are proposing to do much the same in developing tactical nuclear weapons. What we have found, Maria, the best defense against nuclear weapons is to have a common, weapon yourself. That is what has sustained us ever since nuclear weapons have developed. So as he's developing a capability that we don't have, we'll develop a similar capability to neutralize the use of that weapon system, which has proved successful for 70 years.
So are we doing that right now then, General?
We have made the proposal. The president has not made a decision on it yet, is likely going to make that decision, and yes, we'll go ahead and develop it.
All right, let me ask you about this new threat now that we're hearing from ISIS. The U.S.-led coalition obviously has destroyed the terrorist group's strongholds in Syria and Iraq, but now growing concern that the Islamic State has splinter groups. Yesterday, the State Department warned of 7 ISIS-linked groups found around the world in countries like Nigeria, the Philippines, and Somalia. General, you told us months ago that now ISIS was going further into Africa. How could the U.S. fight these decentralized operations?
Well, we cannot. I mean, this is a global problem. There's a global revolution going on with radical Islam trying to take over local nation states and actually change the global order. They want to take over the world much like communists wanted to do in the 20th century. And the only way to approach a global problem, because they're in the Middle East, they're in Africa, Northern Africa, Eastern Africa, Western Africa, they're in South Asia, they're in Southeast Asia, and then, of course, they inspire people in Europe and America to kill their own people. The only way to deal with a global problem like that is to approach it globally, is bring the nations of the world together. Let's benchmark the best practices against them, help them to understand the intelligence, help them to do a little bit of training. But we can't fight this problem all around the world ourselves. That's impossible. We've got to help others to do it. And most importantly, and this is a significant thing, we have got to provide a purposeful life and alternatives to why young people want to join a fanatical movement like this. This is a political movement that is based on religious ideology. We have got to turn them away from that. And that's crucial. And that'll take time. We don't do that overnight.
Yeah, you make a really good point, because the majority of the population in many places in the Middle East are 30 years or younger. I mean, you look at a place like Saudi Arabia, 70% of the population, 30 years or younger. The evil people, the ISIS soldiers, want to get those people before they get older. They want to get them when they're young and just turn their heads into evil. So characterize where ISIS is then now. I mean, the last time we spoke, you were pretty sure that they were on the run, that this military today, under this administration, had actually, we were winning.
What we said is we retook the territory that they owned. And that they deserve huge credit for doing that, because out of that caliphate, they run their internet operations, they finance things that are going on in other places, and they could direct them. Now they're hiding in holes in southeast and Syria. But still, even in Iraq and Syria, Maria, there's still about 15,000 ISIS fighters in those areas. They're just not, they don't own territory anymore.
I see.
And clearly, that because ISIS existed for 4+ years all over the internet on a world stage, they really motivated a lot of people to join this movement worldwide.
And then there's the war in Afghanistan, sir. The nation's president there reportedly offering passports to the Taliban in a bid to strike peace with the group. Your thoughts here?
Well, he's trying to bring them into the political spectrum of Afghanistan and give them amnesty for war crimes and make them a part of the political fabric of the country. The Taliban's not going to take it. And the reason is simply this. They own more territory under their control now anytime since when we toppled the country when they were running the country. They want to run the country because they did it in the past. And they're not going to take that deal.
In terms of the war in Syria, let me get back to Syria for a second, because the U.S. and its allies slammed Russia after the ceasefire collapsed this week. But Putin blamed, quote, extremist forces. So the United Nations has called for a pause in the fighting to deliver aid to evacuate civilians. Is this another setback for Syria? What's happening here?
Well, that's just Putin lying through his teeth. I mean, the reality is every time we've had a ceasefire in Syria and in Ukraine, the Russians, I say again, the Russians have broken the ceasefire, and they have done it here. Those planes that are bombing those people are not opposition forces. They don't own a single airplane. They're not extremists who own airplanes. Those planes are Russian and Syrian airplanes that are continuing to bomb the people, and we can see it on television yesterday. That is Russian breaking the ceasefire.
Wow. Meanwhile, there's a United Nations report shedding light on North Korea's illegal trade. The Kim Jong-un regime reportedly sending equipment to Syria that could be used to make chemical weapons. So investigators found more than 40 unreported shipments to the civil war-torn country between 2012 and 17. That is in direct violation of the international sanctions, General, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is why we have to deal with this regime, because yes, they're pointing nuclear weapons at the United States, and certainly that's alone enough to take these guys on. But the second thing they will do is what they're doing here. They will take those nuclear weapons and proliferate them. They will sell them to Syrians. They will sell them to the Iranians. They will sell them to ISIS. That is what makes this regime so very dangerous and why they have to be stopped.
All right, we will leave it there. General, always a pleasure to see you. Thanks very much for your insights on all of this.
Good talking to you, Maria.
And to you as well, General Jack Keane there.